There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Thursday, June 18th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the World Crypto Network. The price of Bitcoin was down 0.28% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,392, a high of 9,496, and a low of 9,260. That's $1 for 10,647 Satoshis. Volume was about regular for a weekday, with 2,423 Bitcoins changing hands. The market continues to lean margin long, with 80% of the market heading that direction. Bitcoin dominance was at 65.82%. Our top story today is obviously President Donald Trump mentioning Bitcoin in John Bolton's book, Politics and Bitcoin Unite. And guess what? The president doesn't like Bitcoin either. But first, the NFL can really be genius sometimes. Look at the player helmets that they might sport in the fall for COVID-19. The COVID-19 series helmet. Note the face mask on the front, as well as the impressive eye protection on the top. The NFL really going above and beyond here. And now the story you've all been waiting for. Donald Trump told Treasury Secretary to go after Bitcoin. According to John Bolton's new book, The Room Where It Happened, Trump was against Bitcoin long before his July 2019 Twitter tirade. United States President Donald Trump, impeached, wanted to take his apparent dislike of Bitcoin off Twitter and onto the regulatory level, according to former National Security Advisor John Bolton. In a June 18 article in Forbes about Bolton's new book, The Room Where It Happened, reveals Bolton heard Trump tell Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin to go after Bitcoin. The conversation between Trump and Mnuchin was regarding trade sanctions and tariffs against China in May 2018. It's not the first time Trump has expressed a dislike of the cryptocurrency. He went on a Twitter tirade in July 2019 in which he called Bitcoin not money and based on thin air. He continued by attacking Facebook's Libra token as having little standing or dependability. The Treasury Secretary backed up Trump's position in the media following the July 2019 tweets, saying the White House was looking at all of the crypto assets, and subsequently claiming that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are used for money laundering more often than cash is. In February of this year, Mnuchin said at a hearing that he would be announcing some significant new requirements for cryptocurrencies with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, alluding to more oversight by the federal government to prevent money laundering. But the mercurial Trump has often taken some decisions that may have benefited cryptocurrency after the conversation alleged by Bolton took place. The U.S. president appointed Mick Mulvaney as the White House chief of staff in October 2018. Mulvaney is pro-Bitcoin and has called Bitcoin a currency that is not manipulatable by any government. Of course, he has little power in the chief of staff position and is usually just the next to be fired. Everyone give us a thumbs up and a share. Thanks for listening and watching to the World Crypto Network. Floodgates open for big institutional investors to pour into Bitcoin. Pay attention to what hedge funds, university endowments, pension funds, and other Bigfoot institutional investors are doing. That's where the big money is, and Bitcoin is one of the only cryptocurrencies large enough and liquid enough to absorb institutional ties, capital flows. They're also considering investing in the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. Institutional money on its way soon. Did you get your Satoshis yet? Bitcoin for Boomers startup River Financial raises $5.7 million. There are plenty of places to buy Bitcoin, so it's not obvious why the world needs another one. But a startup called River Financial sees a niche, a Bitcoin service that operates like a conventional bank and caters to those over 55. Bitcoin for Boomers. Sounds like a clever idea. The Bitcoin market is totally dominated by a tiny number of pro traders. I am Jack's complete lack of surprise. And guess what? You're not one of them. Bitcoin's still undervalued after quarter 2 rally, price metric shows. We all knew that. At press time, Bitcoin is trading near 94.50, up nearly 47% so far this quarter, and has gained 145% from the crazy low of 3,867 observed on the crash of March 13th. Despite the recent rise, this is a Mayer multiple. Let's keep going. Number of Bitcoin whales has risen by 2% since halving. Nice. Borrowing dollars against Bitcoin and crypto is about to get a lot easier. Good. Singapore ride-sharing app lets customers pay with Bitcoin. That sounds good, but do they take Lightning Network? Let's see. Customers can top up a maximum of $999. That's a funny restriction. Just over $700 in Bitcoin to pay for rides. You can also pay through Bitcoin and Lightning using Fold, which allows you to buy Uber gift cards. That's good. But why are these guys only taking Bitcoin and not Lightning? Singapore, get Lightning. Bitcoin price target set at 5 times the prior high. The previous high was $20,000. That means, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be $100,000 a Bitcoin. $100,000 a Bitcoin, and that's not bad. I don't have the story right here. We'll probably get to it later, but Max Keiser did go on the Alex Jones show lately. Say what you will about Alex Jones, but the headline was very encouraging. Keiser told Jones that the price of Bitcoin was going to a new high of $400,000 a coin, and Jones, seeming to have had a conversion since all the previous times when he could have bought Bitcoin for cheap, when he could have asked his audience to buy Bitcoin for cheap instead of stocking their emergency bunkers and so forth, has finally come around on Bitcoin, now repeating the oft-familiar refrain that Bitcoin is like fire brought from the gods. Why he couldn't see this at first, I'm not so sure, but maybe it's the $400,000. Maybe it's the $10,000. When Bitcoin was smaller, he couldn't take it seriously, but now he can. The price of Bitcoin is down 0.24% in the last 24 hours, or about flat, with a last of 9,394, a high of 9,496, and a low of 9,260. That's $1 for 10,645 Satoshis. Volume is regular for a weekday, around 2,403 Bitcoins changing hands. The market continues to lean margin long, with 80% of the market heading that direction. Bitcoin dominance is at 65.83%. Check out World Crypto Network store at worldcryptonetwork.store. You can get the Treasures Don't Float t-shirt Explain to your friends what happened in your Bitcoin boating accident quickly and easily. Don't mention that it was a yacht, because after all, treasures don't float. Get the Bitcoin Not Bombs 2020 Bitcoin Halvening Rare t-shirt. Show you're an OG with a new shirt at worldcryptonetwork.store. Also, check out the World Crypto Network podcast at worldcryptonetwork.com. Then you click the button that says podcast, and it's on Apple, iTunes, Spreaker, Overcast. Gosh, what's the other one? There's another one people are listening on that I don't even know. But anyway, it's on all kinds of podcast services, so thanks so much to our podcast listeners. And check out Spreaker, where we're trying out a live version of this podcast. I think they'll give us about the first 15 minutes each show for free. So check that out. Audio-only versions. And we're starting a campaign. We need all of your help. We need everyone to favorite, retweet, and keep asking blockchain.info, why don't they accept SegWit and Lightning? They're a big company. We gave them plenty of time. Let's ask them politely. Let's be nice. Let's ask at blockchain, and let's ask the CEO at NICCARY. Ask them nicely, be polite, but let's quietly nudge this company in the right direction. Why doesn't blockchain.info use SegWit and Lightning? They're overcharging their customers, and they need to stop. They have plenty of resources to develop the new technology necessary to accept these things. It's time. Blockchain.info. Join me. Write your own tweets. Contact them on Twitter. Retweet, favorite, like this show. Thank you for your support. And now, the news. As we talked about, why doesn't blockchain.info accept SegWit and use Lightning? It's time. Andrew Cuomo is making Juneteenth a state holiday in New York State. Juneteenth is the end of slavery, quickly becoming on its way towards hopefully an American holiday. It's a good day. June 19th, Juneteenth, coming up soon. Zay Frank, classic video blogger, the great one, says he's holding on tightly to the idea that he should wear a large t-shirt, while his large size shirt holds on ever more tightly to him. The press secretary is refusing to answer who told President Trump that it was safe to hold a rally in Oklahoma, as well as which health officials he consulted with before deciding to hold it in the state, which is seeing an uptick in COVID-19 cases. There was no answer because there is no answer. Check out Riga, Latvia, where they just unveiled a statue to doctors and first responders. Very cool stuff in Riga, Latvia. Strangest of all things, I've been to Riga, Latvia. How strange is that? Kyle Torpy writes, the DEA failed to adequately police its undercover agents' handlings of cryptocurrency, even years after one of its agents, Dread Pirate Roberts case, stole $700,000 in Bitcoin in 2015, according to a new report from the U.S. Department of Justice's Office of the Inspector General. So DEA agents have been stealing Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies from the Department of Justice, from the American people, just showing you again how enticing and amazing Bitcoin is, that even federal agents can't stop themselves from stealing it. As I'm sure you recall in the Dread Pirate Roberts case, the agents assigned to work the case stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from Ross Ulbricht and used it themselves. They later went to jail too. So you're saying the people who investigated him stole money and went to jail, and yet he's still in jail for life? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Breaking news, as well as the Bitcoin news that we already talked about. So it's already on the board. If you have, hey, 15 minutes are up. There you go. So Spreaker live show is over. But the big Bolton Bitcoin news that we already talked about was not really the main news broken by the leak of Bolton's book. According to John Bolton's book, Trump asked China's Xi to help him win re-election. As it says here, Trump should be impeached again and removed from office immediately. Maybe he should just resign. But he did, according to the book, ask Chinese President Xi to help him win election by purchasing soybeans and other crops from states that were vital to the Trump re-election effort. This is for the upcoming election in 2020. Just for you keeping score at home, if you have your scorecard, he's now asked Russia, Ukraine, and China to help him win re-election. Russia, Ukraine, and China. Meanwhile, the United States stockpile is stuck with 63 million doses of hydroxychloroquine that is really only a malaria medication and for other people who need it. It's not a preventative medicine for the coronavirus, and it doesn't cure the coronavirus. This could have been avoided. People in the FDA tried to stop this. They tried to block this. Certain companies owned by Trump and Kushner made this drug. They had a whole thing. The president himself claimed to be taking it. People were telling me on Twitter how good it was. They were staking their whole reputation on it. And now they are plain and clearly wrong. They have 63 million doses of this and nothing to do with it, as well as it's probably that dirty stuff they got from Pakistan that they were trying to block access to as well, just because it was not made in a clean factory. What if we have a real crisis like 9/11 with the way he makes decisions? John Kelly is quoted as asking at one point as he considers resigning, according to John Bolton's new book that I'm desperate to read but can't. They say the media has copies. They say it's been dropped on every media's doorstep. They say the books have been printed there in the warehouse, and with a single flip of a switch, Amazon could turn it on, although I don't exactly want to reward Bolton for not testifying. What the... So anyway, Bolton should have testified. But otherwise, there's a very fascinating book out there. I'm sure you want to read it too. According to the book, Trump did not know that Britain is a nuclear power and that they use nuclear power plants. He asked if Finland is part of Russia and came closer to withdrawing from NATO than was previously known. Remember, it's Russia's wet dream that America would randomly withdraw from NATO, almost ceding control of Europe to Russia. Let's listen to, speaking of Russia, let's listen to a little bit of John Bolton describing what he thinks of Trump's relationship with Putin. This is an ABC News exclusive, and this is the closest we can get to the book right now.
How would you describe Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin?
I think Putin thinks he can play him like a fiddle. I think Putin is smart, tough. I think he sees that he's not faced with a serious adversary here. I don't think he's worried about Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, as we say, sees himself as a deal maker. What happened to the deal maker in those situations?
Well, the president may well be a superb deal maker when it comes to Manhattan real estate. Dealing with arms limitation treaties on strategic weapons, dealing in many, many other international security issues are things far removed from his life experience. When you're dealing with somebody like Putin, who has made his life understanding Russia's strategic position in the world, against Donald Trump, who doesn't enjoy reading about these issues or learning about them, it's a very difficult position for America to be in.
And it's why Bolton should have testified. It's not too late. They can call him in now. These are just the countries we know of that he's asked to interfere: Russia, Ukraine, and China. The Bradford File says, everything that is happening today in America is about Trump. all of it. And in some ways, you got to think he's happy, right? He's getting the most attention he's ever gotten. The entire world is thinking about him. Everyone in the chat is writing about him. We're talking about him. The book's about him. It's all negative attention, though. There is a difference at a certain point. I know there's no such thing as bad press, but at a certain point, entirely negative attention will turn on you. According to Bolton, Trump is a moron and a criminal. A moron and a criminal. There's also another story from the book we haven't really talked about yet, allegedly from John Bolton's book. President Xi was telling Trump about the concentration camps that he'd built for the Uyghur Muslim minority in China, which China has been separating and perhaps eliminating for years now. It's a terrible situation. Trump agreed with it, said that concentration camps were fine, agreed that building them were the best solution, and didn't bat an eye. We always wondered what kind of casual mistakes an unprepared and uninterested president could make. And there it is, casually just saying okay to concentration camps. As Kurt Eichenwald writes, remember when the GOP got up in arms when nobody online used the words Nazi or fascist about Trump, and they trotted out concentration camps in their dismissal? Well, that ain't going to work anymore. Trump literally signed off on concentration camps. The modern GOP is monstrous. And it is amazing to see how quickly we've forgotten the mistakes of the past. I mean, everyone, it's fine to put the Uyghur Muslims in a concentration camp because you're not a Uyghur Muslim, right? That's a terrible attitude that always comes back to you. It always drifts that way. You know, you're not a socialist, you're not a Christian, you're not a Jew. Oh, you'll be fine. It just gets to the end. They go after IT people. The Rayshard Brooks story continues to get worse, with the officers holding him for 46 minutes for no reason, didn't try to arrest him, toyed with him with a breath test. Then, after one officer shot him, one of the officers kicked him while another stood on his shoulders. That's an unbelievable story. There was more news this morning. I listened to it on the Morning Joe podcast or something this morning, and it was an interview that Rayshard Brooks had done with a company that was trying to understand like prison reform, basically. They were interviewing ex-cons and people that were involved in the system and trying to see what they thought about it, what their experiences were. And they played a clip from his interview after first saying that Rayshard came in with a giant smile ear to ear and was just the nicest guy. And when we listened to that video of him the other day before the officer shot him to death, he seemed like a nice guy. He seemed a little drunk. He seemed like he didn't want to drive. He seemed like he had agreed that the best solution at this point was sleeping in the car. The girlfriend would be mad at him if he drove home drunk. It would be unsafe, so on and so forth. It seemed the officer was really the only unsafe person in that situation. But in this interview, Rayshard Brooks said, and it was really telling, and he just said it this morning, he was talking about how it was very difficult for him to improve his life after prison because in many ways he was still scarred by the experience of prison. He certainly had made mistakes, and I don't know his record right now, but he agreed that he'd made mistakes and he needed to be punished and he was put in prison. But then the idea that he was locked into this cell for 23 hours for these mistakes, and then that the conditions were so terrible and the other people were being treated so terrible, and just that this whole idea, it had, taken him back. It hadn't. It's not like prison's a place where you go because you did a bad thing where they fix you and then you come out better. There's no reason it couldn't be like that. You're laughing or whatever. Like, prison is supposed to be punishment. But that's only one idea. A lot of other people think that prison could be rehabilitation, or at least tolerable. Solzhenitsyn said you can tell a lot about a society by the way that it treats its prisoners. And our society hasn't gotten very much better than the books that he wrote. There's the president taking a question from social distance there. Coronavirus cases are rising in 22 states, including Oklahoma, where you plan to hold a big rally this week. Aren't you worried about people getting sick? And he rejects the question, saying, no, because if you look, The numbers are very minuscule compared to what it was. It's dying out. So the second wave is starting out, but it's not big enough for Trump. The question refutes his answer, but he just pushes forward anyway. Later that night, after his speech, the president did 30 minutes of commercial-free interview with Sean Hannity on the Fox News channel. I watched it. And he wanted to do more, but Hannity cut him off. The president seemingly has nothing better to do, whereas Hannity, a half second later, was bragging to Laura Ingraham about how he was going to make his exact 9 o'clock cutoff deadline, that he always makes his deadline and that he wouldn't have an unfair balance of time between his show and Laura's show, even though he had the president on the line. But it was an amazing interview with Hannity, like from another world, a world where people haven't been protesting for 2 weeks, a world where the virus isn't coming back, a complete other fantasy world. And the questions were just really great setups. It was like, in the Cheers episode where Cliff gets the category about postal service. And it was just, he asks him a question about everything that he knows. And then he perfectly, in the middle of the question, he'll set up the answer. He'll be like, of course you know this. And it's just beautiful leading by Hannity. But even then, he doesn't want to hang out with him for more than 30 minutes. He got his beat. Guy didn't screw up that badly, and he gets him out of there. So quite an interview. More confusion from the Nevada Gaming Control Board. And again, if you have this unequal standard, you're not going to achieve your results. The virus doesn't care if you're playing a game at a table or if you're walking around a casino. You should wear the mask the whole time. Well, now apparently, and again, it's just, you have to remember, the more subsections you add to a rule, the less likely it is to be followed because it's so complicated. If you're at a table game with no barrier between yourself and the dealer, you have to wear a mask. But if you're at a table game that has a barrier, you don't have to wear a mask. And if you're just in the casino walking around, maybe playing slots or whatever, you don't have to wear a mask. So it's this very confusing, unequal system. Everyone should wear a mask. Everyone should protect everyone else. Then maybe the casino opening would last longer and it wouldn't be, grand opening, grand closing. Today, we found out that the 2020 Republican nominee for president supports ethnic cleansing by the Chinese government. And it's not too late to change your mind, Republicans. You don't have to vote for Trump. You don't have to support Trump. He doesn't even have to be your nominee if you acted fast. I mean, you could change this at the convention. This is one of those things on the train where you pull the cord, emergency stop. You're like, oh, wait a minute. The president had a private conversation with the Chinese president. Only translators and maybe Bolton were president, or maybe Bolton read the readback. And in the conversation, Chinese president is looking for an okay for his new concentration camp project for the Uyghur Muslims, the minority. He wants to, clean things up. And at the least, the president could say he doesn't like it and it's bad and you shouldn't do that. At the least, I mean, I know we're not going to invade. I know we're not going to do anything. We're not going to sanction. We're not going to, human rights doesn't matter to this government or this country. But at the least, you could say it's bad, I mean, Pope John Paul, during World War II, didn't support having Jewish refugees into the United States. But he said it was bad. You could at least say it's bad. So that's where we are. And then everyone is just really excited, big and small, that also in this book, Trump told the Treasury Secretary to go after Bitcoin. So how's that been affecting you, Bitcoin? Price is still pretty good. Technology and software works pretty good. You can send it around. Lightning Network's getting better and better. If they went after Bitcoin, what did they even try? It doesn't seem like it worked. Is that all they had? For 2 minutes and 12 seconds after Mr. Brooks was shot, police failed to provide any medical attention. One officer kicked him while he was on the ground, and the other stood on his shoulders while he struggled for life. It's not a video game. The guys who killed him made it seem like a video game. They shot a human being in the back. One of them said, "I got him." Later on, when the cops showed up, they didn't ask how the victim was. They asked how the cops were doing. And the cops said they were doing all right. Adrenaline was still pumping, though. They were still stressing it. So very strange. Mitch McConnell continues to block vote by mail, early voting, and online registration. It's already passed in the House, but Mitch McConnell is helping Trump suppress the vote in the middle of a pandemic. Mitch McConnell is the worst person in the world. None of this is surprising, but it's worth reading anyway. Trump is quintessentially unfit to serve in any leadership role, let alone as President of the United States. Howard Dean says it's pretty clear to him after reading just 10 minutes of Bolton excerpts that Trump has committed treason. Maybe Trump should think twice about having his lawyer reviving the death penalty. Check out the new Tallycoin, where they're accepting donations to pay their servers for the year. They're accepting donations using Tallycoin. You can pay with Bitcoin or Lightning. It says Paynim is also accepted. I don't know what that is. Paynims are private. But there you go. You can donate to Tallycoin right here on tallyco.in. And if you need to fundraise for something, all you need is a Bitcoin address. You can go to Tallycoin. They'll make you a cool page like this, help you track your stats, and then you can just link people to this page. They can donate, and Tallycoin doesn't even get a cut of your fees. They don't even take anything at all. It's all yours, anything you raise. Tallycoin, tallyco.in. It's free. But we've got more news. Let's keep going. Thought someday there'd be less news. Here we go. This is good news for once. Zoom is going to encrypt messages for all users, not just the pay users. Their earlier stance of only encrypting messages for pay users and then ratting out their non-pay users to law enforcement seems like a really bad idea, and they changed their mind. No word yet on if they're going to allow Tiananmen Square demonstrations. I doubt it. Zoom is far too linked to China to offer freedom of speech, and freedom of speech includes Tiananmen Square and Winnie the Pooh, as it seems. So we've moved over to Jitsi, and I hope that you'll move to Jitsi as well. Jitsi. I don't know. It's impossible to spell, but check out Jitsi. It's a free alternative to Zoom. Let's see. The absence of surges in cities with massive demonstrations has taken many officials and health analysts by surprise. And Bcrypt agrees, saying, instead, spikes seem to be mostly occurring in places where bars and restaurants have reopened. Seems likely due to protesters wearing masks and being outdoors. So it's interesting, the unofficial activity of protests, which many have pointed to and said, why can't I have my this? Why can't I have my that if they can have protest? Turns out protest just might not be spreading the virus. Being outdoors, many protesters wearing masks, seems to have not spread the virus, whereas being indoors, likely not wearing masks in bars and restaurants, has spread the virus. So it's almost like we shouldn't have reopened, right? Like we shouldn't have gone out there and spread the virus unless we want more people to die. Hashtag Team Virus. And remember, it doesn't just kill you. It also makes you sick and may cause permanent damage to your lungs and other organs. Yes, young people, you might live through the virus, but you'll never run another mile again. Maybe it's better not to get the virus. Maybe we should act smart, work as a team, kill off the virus, and then go outside. You know, what someone smarter than us would do. That's what I'd like to do. Police are protesting the charges announced against the two officers who shot Rayshard Brooks in the back. The policemen are walking off the job, not responding to calls unless backup is needed, and going silent on the radio. You know what I think you should do. Fire them all. Fire them all. It's a very rare occurrence that they have actually charged the officers who shot Rayshard Brooks in the back with murder. There is a death penalty possibility for a police officer in the United States. We all know it's not happening, but the fact that it's even a possibility, even 0.001%, the fact that it's even on the table is a huge deal. If the cops want to maintain their power to kill people randomly, they're right to walk off here. This is the line. After this point, cops start being held accountable for what they do in the streets. Legally accountable. Civilly accountable. They might take their boat. They might sever their overtime pay. They might, take money from their accounts directly. So, quite a lot happening here. So that's why the reason they're instituting this so-called blue flu. Atlanta's got the blue flu as the all-important officers who are so important to our communities and care so much about our people that they don't live with them, they don't shop with them, they don't identify with them, and now, when they just watch people shot and murdered, they side with the murderers. So good look, Atlanta police. Way to go. Coronavirus cases in big cities with large outdoor protests, also mostly wearing masks. I'd say 90%, 99%, maybe even 100% here wearing masks, just glancing at this picture. I really don't see, it's tough to find a non-masked protester, at least in this, one random picture. The places where numerous protests have taken place, coronavirus cases are actually declining despite widespread testing. So it doesn't seem like it spreads well outside or if you wear a mask. Of course, here in the United States, coronavirus cases are so-called upsloping. Some would call it a plateau. Others would call it the first wave. We're now at 80 days of more than 20,000 new cases a day. It's off the chart. This is a log scale. It's the only country in the world, and he is right. It does seem like it's upsloping. We can see all the other countries all below the United States. This is a 7-day rolling average of new cases by the number of days since the 10 average cases were first reported. You can see that the United States is above everyone else. And if you look very closely at the chart, I'll zoom back out so you can see all the other countries in the world. There's maybe one here that's challenging us at all. But then if we look closely like we were before, you can see a bit of an upward tick there. There's kind of a diagonal upward movement. So keeping an eye on COVID cases in the United States. Wear a mask, stay home, wash your hands. Israel decided to reopen schools. Well, that didn't work. More than 100 new infections of COVID-19 were linked to a single school in Jerusalem. Of all the angles to this epidemic, this one worries me the most, says Eric Feigelding, because school closures are the most harmful to kids. But it does seem like we need to keep them home, especially if you consider they could be picking it up at the school and bringing it home to their family. It's like Jaws. You're never safe. This is a nice recap of where we are. Hillary isn't going to prison. There's no Obamagate. There's no border wall. There's no migrant terrorist caravan. Beautiful healthcare didn't arrive. North Korea still has nuclear weapons. The tax cut was for the rich. And the coronavirus didn't go down to zero. He's a fraud. And he really is. Are you tired of winning yet? Have you had enough winning? Here in Las Vegas, body-worn camera footage released by the Metropolitan Police shows 2 photographers did identify themselves as journalists multiple times as they were arrested during a protest. Hey, police, maybe you should stop arresting and beating up journalists because now you're wearing body cameras. And this is how a camera works. A camera records footage that can be reviewed later. So when you arrest a journalist who's saying they're a journalist, who's carrying a camera, who has an ID badge that says they're a journalist, maybe you should leave them alone. Just as a decent thing to do as a human being as well, and as a legal thing. But also, you're filming yourself, idiot. Arizona, Florida, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Texas all reported record increases in new COVID-19 cases on Tuesday after recording all-time highs last week. Nevada also reported its highest single-day tally of new cases on Tuesday. Hospitalizations are also rising or at record highs. Way to go! Hashtag Team Virus. If you're out there without a mask, you're spreading the virus. Thank you. From Team Virus. As the poster says, holy shit. Texas reported 4,098 new coronavirus cases just today. The previous record high was 2,504, set last week. Great job, Texas. Way to be out there at all those bars, restaurants, and water parks, spreading that virus. You're really going to kill a lot of people. I wonder if people in Texas will be able to run or use their lungs after this is all over. I wonder if that was worth getting a haircut. I just cut my own hair. Woo! So tough. Going to a restaurant. I just cooked my own food. So easy. National Guard reportedly protected the Trump D.C. hotel, the president's private business, during recent protests against racial injustice. They didn't guard monuments or museums. We're investigating how that decision was made. Terrible decision, obviously self-serving, and once again, there's gonna be a record. Reminds me of the horrible job they did during the Iraq invasion when they allowed the museums to be looted and people carried out the history of Iraq into the street to be sold to the highest bidder and broken and smashed. It's a terrible job they did in the invasion of Iraq. Everyone knows it's a common thing in invasions. You guard the museums and the monuments. You guard the history as a good invading force. Because it's valuable stuff. You could sell it later. It's valuable stuff. You could give it back to the people, get a little goodwill, you know, or you just let it be looted. And apparently here in America, they were ready to let our stuff be looted so they could protect some fancy hotel. Trump's having a bit of a problem on Twitter. He can't seem to decide if Bolton's book is full of lies or classified information. The two talking points are not consistent with each other. Either Bolton is a big liar, which means he can print the book because it's not a threat to anyone because it's all lies, or Bolton has published classified information, and the classified information must be true to be a threat. So these two don't fit together. Trump keeps talking about it on Twitter. He's obviously very upset today. Look at this angry tweet. Remember when we thought the Twitter account would be taken away from them? Remember when you thought some aide would write the tweets or someone would spell check them or something like this? No. He still has it. He's still randomly writing. This is obviously direct from Trump. Here it is. Wacko John Bolton's exceedingly tedious New York Times book is made up of lies and fake stories. Said all good about me in print. until the day I fired him. A disgruntled, boring fool who only wanted to go to war. Never had a clue. Was ostracized and happily dumped. What a dope. That's a person that calls himself President of the United States there. So weird, wild stuff. Weird, wild stuff. And we have more from John Bolton describing President Trump, saying that he is not fit for office. Let's check out John Bolton talking about Trump.
You described the president as erratic, foolish, behaved irrationally, bizarrely. You can't leave him alone for a minute. He saw conspiracies behind rocks and was stunningly uninformed. He couldn't tell the difference between his personal interests and the country's interests.
I don't think he's fit for office. I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job. There really isn't any guiding principle that I was able to discern other than what's good for Donald Trump's reelection.
You say that you were astonished by what you saw. A president for whom getting reelected was the only thing that mattered, even if it meant endangering or weakening the nation?
Well, I think he was so focused on the reelection that longer-term considerations fell by the wayside. So if he thought he could get a photo opportunity with Kim Jong-un at the demilitarized zone in Korea, there was considerable emphasis on the photo opportunity and the press reaction to it, and little or no focus on what such meetings did for the bargaining position of the United States.
And it would have been great if you had testified at the House of Representatives when they called you, John Bolton. You would have been a patriot and a hero instead of a coward and a traitor. I hope you enjoy your book advance, Bolton, because that's all you get. Book advance. Looks like hospitals in Hong Kong are gearing up for a potential surge in COVID-19 cases later in the year, as the city recorded more than 4 imported coronavirus cases. I wonder when they're just going to close these things up and stop taking in new cases. Anyway, looks like you can bin your Christmas holiday plans for Hong Kong, according to Leo. So doesn't look good for Hong Kong there. Another thing that Bolton said, he said that for Trump, obstruction of justice was a way of life. That's pretty unfit. Pretty unfit. For the record, they also want you to know cops aren't supposed to kill guilty people either. That's right. We have justices, juries, lawyers, all kinds of things before someone's supposed to die from the system. It's a pretty big problem when the police skip all that and kill them themselves. Financial terminology cheat sheet. This is a good one to save for later. Quantitative easing. That's money printing. Asset purchases. Money printing. Expanding ballot sheet. Print money. Monetary financing. Print money. Inflation targeting. Print money. Credit easing. Print money. Debase currency. Print money. It's pretty much all they do is print money.
There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Well, we're going to find out, right? Check it out. Adam Meister is back on his original Bitcoin channel. Check out Adam at TechBalt on Twitter and on YouTube as the Bitcoin Meister. He got his Bitcoin channel back. YouTube had taken it down for a while. It was completely inaccessible, but it's back now. So thank you to the human beings at YouTube for fixing the algorithm problems, even if it takes longer than we'd like. Glad to see Adam has his channel back. Apple and Google impose an insane 30% sales tax on all digital goods sold on every mobile phone in the world. As a result, users pay higher prices. Startups and entire industries get destroyed or never appear. Regulators have been ignoring this absurdity for 10 years. And it's been very strange not to see any of the anti-monopoly protections applied to technology. There was a movement for a while there. They were going to break Microsoft up into parts like operating system and Office. This likely would have led to a universal version of Office sooner and might have even put Microsoft in a better position. Of course, it didn't happen, and Microsoft still owns everything. And now Apple and Google have set up gates before your phone, and you have to pay to get in. Trump has done everything he can to block the release of this book, but it didn't work. The press has the book, and the press is asking questions about the book. Here's a question. It made it right all the way to the White House lawn. Let's see what they had to say about this new book by John Bolton. I'm sure they asked the Bitcoin question first.
So in this book, John Bolton alleges that President Trump ran on the campaign in 2016 to be tough on China, but he was pleading with Xi to ensure that he would win in 2020. Do you deny that incident?
Robert Lighthizer has been asked this on the fly, in fact. He was asked it without even reading that and immediately said that is absolutely untrue. And I mean, no president has been tougher on China than President Trump. The trade deal, the billions in tariffs, this president has been tough on China from the very beginning.
If there were so many false claims.
All right, great. So if she's going with the book is untrue, then go ahead, print the book. Get me my copy. What's going on here if it's untrue?
Why did it take 6 months for the White House to review this and still not even be done?
It was going through a classified review process and still is going through that process. We take classified information seriously. It puts people at risk, it puts sources at risk, and it's a process that we meticulously look through. And it was undergoing a review process that's still ongoing.
In April, one of the officials was reviewing it, said she had no more suggestions. It took another month for his attorneys to hear that there could have been additional people reviewing the book.
Again, it's still undergoing the review process. We take.
Well, this is really the worst audio in the world, so I'm tired of it. But again, they're still reviewing the book. They're going to review it forever. It's full of lies, but it's also full of truth. So we must stop this book and look at it. She's even got the book right there in her hands. They've got a hard copy. I don't want to give Bolton any money, but I wouldn't mind having a hard copy of that book I could read right now, or even a Kindle version. I'm going to look later, see if anybody else on the internet has done some good work and released that book. We talked about it earlier. I think these helmets are really clever. I mean, it's easy to say this is dystopian and end of the world and kind of ridiculous and also really unsafe to make the players play, given the possibility that they could be spreading the virus. But if you had sweet masked helmets like this on top of social distancing and basically my friend James D'Angelo's plan to quarantine the players. If you quarantine the players, you keep them separate, you keep them clean, all the players can meet up and practice, then they can meet up and play each other. Helmets like these would just be another precaution. And probably way better than wearing that mask on your face, having a mask on your face the whole game. Seems like this would be much more breathable and still block particles from entering your mouth and block particles from exiting your mouth. So good protection for everyone. Maybe a creepy little vision into the future here. I don't know. If Bolton's book was false, Trump would be suing for defamation, not to block publication. Does seem like the book might be true. Check out money printing and its amazing effect on the Zimbabwe, Venezuela, and Iran stock markets. You can see the stock markets go directly up, and then they hit a top and turn right back down. This is probably what's going to happen in America as the money printing has gotten everyone excited about the stock market, but then soon enough they'll realize where the money printing came from and that there just isn't any more money.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Let's see, they said, yes, President Trump engaged in a pattern of behavior that looked like obstruction of justice as a way of life. Many people have accused the Trump administration from acting like a mafia family to acting like a criminal conspiracy from the very beginning. And now even people on the inside, conservative Republican John Bolton, is saying that, yes, it seemed like obstruction of justice was a way of life. Very strange time this is. This is the only time where we're going to be inside of the bubble. Before the bubble was being made, after the bubble will be popped, and we'll be out on the other side, and we'll look back on this and we'll say, how on earth did we spend so much time in that bubble of craziness? Walmart is removing all cashiers from the store and testing a self-checkout only model. That's right, Andrew Yang told you about it. Jobs are going away. Artificial intelligence and computers automation is here. Walmart testing a checker-free store. Sure, there'd be a couple security guards, but much less people, much less money spent by Walmart. Save that sweet money. Interesting book here about the goal to become a machine, adventures among cyborgs, utopians, hackers, and futurists, solving the modest problem of death. Sounds interesting book here, recommended by Balaji. Check that out on his Twitter account. We're running out of time, but there's also a record-breaking heat wave in Siberia, so that's good. Not. Unusually high temperatures in the region linked to wildfires, oil spill, and moth swarms. So that's good. 2020 continues to strike back. Trump is hosting a super spreader rally tonight. What does that mean? Or tomorrow, a couple days. There's people coming in from across the country who then will leave and go back to their home states. Trump's super spreader rally is a threat to America. This is not a game, folks. We're in the middle of a pandemic with no end in sight. Stop the madness. Cancel Trump's Tulsa rally, or at least hold it outside. It seems like the outside gives you more space for social distancing. You can blast the speakers louder, and you could even have a bigger crowd. So why not just hold the rally outside, even if you have to reschedule or something? The sheriff of Pinal County, Arizona, has tested positive for coronavirus a day after visiting the White House. That's right, the virus is getting closer and closer. I don't know if the president should really go out. He doesn't seem to like wearing a mask. He might get that virus, and if he gets it, he'll spread. Don't forget Sweden. Everybody was all excited. Sweden was doing nothing. How did that work? Well, let's see. Sweden is the red line. So daily new cases. Sweden leads all of its Scandinavian brothers. Well over 800 daily new cases on a 7-day average, continuing to lead. And cumulative deaths per million. Sweden is out of control, ahead of the other Nordic countries. So disaster for Sweden. Doing nothing was not a good idea. Not a surprise, but not a good idea. The Atlantic says the U.S. didn't learn from China, New York didn't learn from Washington, and Texas didn't learn from New York. A seemingly endless cycle of failure to learn from the experiences of others. Why does this keep happening with the coronavirus? And another 1.5 million people filed for unemployment benefits, bringing the total over the past 13 weeks to a staggering 45.7 million people unemployed. Mnuchin is still refusing to disclose the businesses receiving $500 billion in bailout funds, and everybody's talking about President Trump's book. It's about Bitcoin. It's about everything. It's about everything else. So check it out, and please support our tweets at blockchain.info. Be polite. Let's ask them nicely, and let's just say, hey, it's time for SegWit and the Lightning Network for blockchain.info. 50 million wallets that need 50 million upgrades. Upgrade blockchain.info. Thanks so much for joining us. We're out of time for today. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and a share. If you'd like to support us, there's links to all of our merchandise on the YouTube videos now. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt, basically we make a little money that way, so that'd be nice. You can also check out the World Crypto Network podcast. It's up to date on Spreaker and iTunes and Spotify and lots of other places where podcasts are served. There's the hour chime. We're out of time. Until next time, bye-bye.